everybody. Welcome to the Exploring Legal Futures webinars, to the first session of these webinars for 2025. My name is Maria, and I am the Outreach, Widening Participation and Communications Coordinator here at the Faculty of Law at the University of Cambridge. And today's session is all about applying to Cambridge law and what student life at Cambridge looks like. So before I launch onto my presentation, I'd like to introduce the student volunteers we have here with us today. We're going to introduce them at the beginning, and then they're going to come back at the end of the presentation to answer all of your questions. So if I start with, I'm going to let her introduce herself. But Megan, do you want to go first? So tell us your college and the year you're in. So if you can, unmute. There you go. Excellent.
Hiya, I'm Megan. I'm currently in first year and I study at Girton College.
Thank you very much. And Owen?
Right, I'm Owen. I am currently in my first year and I study at Downing College.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, both. So they're going to disappear for a while and then they're going to come back in about 25 minutes. Just a couple of notices for the webinar. This is being recorded just so it can go on our YouTube channel and that people can watch it after it's done as well. Please do feel free to ask questions on the Q&A box that should be at the bottom of your screen. We're going to go to the Q&A after the presentation is actually finished, but feel free to put your questions in now as well. We will be starting with the pre-submitted questions at the end of the session, but yeah, we're going to get to your live ones as well, so do put them along during the presentation. You don't have to wait till the end. Fantastic. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, hopefully. So the first thing is the application process and the sort of timeline of the application process. So how does the timeline look like? When do different things happen? So the first thing you should do if you're thinking of applying to Cambridge Law is, well, choose your course. If you're all here today, I imagine that you already know what course you're wanting to do, and you're wanting to do law, fingers crossed. So the next step would be to choose your college or submit an open application if you're applying to Cambridge. I will break all of those steps down during the presentation, so don't worry too much now. I'm just telling you the basics. The next step would be to book our admissions test, which is called the LMAT test, and then submit your UCAS application to us and to all other universities that you apply to. And usually the deadline for that is the 15th of October. So if you're applying to Cambridge or Oxford, the deadline is the 15th of October. So that is earlier on than other universities. For other universities, the deadline is usually in January. After you submit your application, you have to submit your My Cambridge application, which is a different thing, although the name can be a bit misleading. Submit any written work that you might need to, and have an interview if you're invited to interview. And that will usually happen in December time. And then the decision will come in January. So this is what the sort of application looks like. So this is what the timeline looks like. Now let's see if it's there we go, excellent. So it's going to the next slide. So as I said, the first thing that you need to do is pick a college or do an open application. But many of you might be wondering, what is a college? What is a collegiate university? So a college is basically like a mini campus, that's how we call it, and it provides a base for students. So it has a few different rules. One of them is to admit students. So although you are applying to the University of Cambridge, you're actually applying to a college. So you don't just apply to the University of Cambridge as a whole, you're actually applying to a specific college. And it's the colleges that are responsible for assessing your application and admitting you to the university. And this is really, really important to remember. If you've got admissions queries on your academic requirements, queries on the application process in detail, then those should be directed to the college that you are considering applying to. Okay? And then the colleges are responsible for providing academic and pastoral care. So academic care means your director of studies, and whatever college you go to, you will have somebody called a director of studies. So they are responsible for your kind of academic progress, seeing how you're doing, providing extra help if there's anything you're struggling with, all that sort of thing. And they will also provide a pastoral tutor. So that is somebody who is responsible for your kind of mental well-being, physical well-being, basically your well-being outside of your academics. So that's another role of the colleges. Colleges do provide accommodation, and the overwhelming majority of Cambridge students are required to stay, they're not required to stay in college, but they are required to stay in Cambridge for a set amount of time of their sort of undergraduate degree. So to get an undergraduate degree, you have to have to fulfill, those residency requirements. And for that reason, the overwhelming majority of Cambridge students will stay in college accommodation throughout the 3 years of their degree, which is a little bit different to other universities. They might also provide meals, so a cafeteria or a hall with very subsidized prices, and also recreation. So that could be things like function rooms or common rooms, things like that. They also organize the Cambridge-specific small group teaching. So this is our supervisions that we've got here at Cambridge, or you might know them as tutorials at Oxford. And also they provide facilities for academic study. So that could be libraries, desk spaces, all that sort of thing. So that is the role of the college. But what is the role of the university? So the first thing to note is the university provides the course content. You are going to learn the exact same type of law and content of law whatever college you go to. There's a common sort of misconception or myth, or however you want to call it, that you learn a better type of law or you learn law differently depending on the college you go to. So people might ask, what is a good college for law? That's not applicable. The course content is set by the university. So whatever college you go to, you'll be going to the same lectures, same seminars, same practicals, and you'll be doing the same projects as well. And you'll also be sitting the same exams. So it's the university that sets the exams, not the colleges. And also it is the university that will give you degrees. So your degree will come from the University of Cambridge, not the college that you're attending, okay? And a reminder, they should be your first point of contact during the admissions process. Leading up to the admissions process, so kind of right now as you're thinking about things, and definitely while you actually apply. They are your first and main port of call. Okay? So how do I actually choose a college then? So there's a few different things that you can think about. Cambridge has 29 undergraduate colleges. 3 of those only take mature students. So these are students that would be 20 years old or older by the time they start their Cambridge degree. And also 2 of those colleges are women only, so just for women. All colleges pretty much provide very similar things. So they provide accommodation, dining and recreational facilities, academic facilities, as we said, including IT facilities, pastoral and academic support, and of course, the opportunity to make lifelong friends. But there's a couple of different things that they're different in as well that might actually help you pick a college. So first one is size. There's very, very large colleges and there's very, very small colleges. There's also colleges that have a very small law cohort, so that might be 4 to 5 people. There's also colleges that have 10 or 15. So if that's important to you, you can think about that. And of course, the overall cohort as well. So some colleges might have 100 people in a year, some might have 200. Think about geographically where they are located. So most colleges in Cambridge are clustered around the sort of center of the city, but there's a couple that are outside as well. And then the types of accommodation that are on offer. So that can be things like, do they have big kitchens? Do they have well-equipped kitchens? So things like ovens, things like, I don't know, toasters, whatever is important to you. Not all of them have the same provision. But also things like ensuite bathrooms, accessibility is really, really important as well. How they look. So we've got the older colleges, we've got some newer colleges as well. Types of facilities, and that can include things like music facilities or sports facilities as well. And also the collegiate culture. So how do they feel, basically? I would say the overwhelming majority of people that I have asked have said that the college just felt right to them. They just walked in, they said, this is just right. My instinct says I should apply here. So not a lot of logic in picking a college. But we do recommend, if you can, go to open days, go to outreach events, watch the virtual tours online, speak to current students from those colleges. And that's really the best way you can have to pick a college. It's just interacting with people from that college, seeing what their experience is. You can also do an open application. So basically you just say, I've got no college preference, just allocate me, and then we will automatically allocate you to one. Now, there's no advantage or disadvantage to doing this. You'll be assessed just like every other applicant, but we don't really recommend it if you've got specific kind of disability and accessibility needs. I would say don't spend all of your precious time on looking into colleges, trying to decide what college you want to go into. It's really not the most important bit of the application. It's not going to have a massive effect on your application, if no effect at all. So don't give it way too much attention. You could be doing much better things with your time, such as studying for your A-levels or other qualifications you might be taking. Okay, so that's all about colleges. But let's think a little bit about what are we looking for in people that apply to Cambridge Law? What kind of qualities are we looking for? How do we assess those qualities? So first of all, we are looking for the best and the brightest. We do not care what your background is. And there's no typical Cambridge students. A lot of people think that there's a specific type of person we are looking at and you have to fit that mold, otherwise you'll never make it here. And how that stereotype looks, that might be different for each one. You might each have different perceptions of what a typical Cambridge student is like, but there is no typical Cambridge student. What school you went to, what your financial situation is, what your religious beliefs are, we don't care about that. We just want you to be motivated. We just want you to be the best and the brightest. So if you're sitting there thinking, I'm not going to apply to Cambridge, it's not for me, I will not fit the Cambridge student mold, take that thought, take it out of your head. There's no mold. You just have to be yourself, and we don't care where you come from or what you do. What we do care about is your academic ability and your potential. We do care about you satisfying any subject requirements that we might have. We look for people that are very, very interested, motivated, and enthusiastic about law. And we also want to see that you're a good fit with our specific course, so the way we teach here at Cambridge and the sort of things we teach here at Cambridge. And sometimes, where appropriate, we might look for some vocational commitment as well. But what information do we actually use to assess this sort of thing? Well, first thing to say is we do consider every application individually. We take all aspects into account. There's no part of the application that is considered in isolation, okay? There's no part of the application that weighs significantly more than another part. We look at everything holistically, and that's super important to remember. We will look at your academic record, and that does include both your current qualifications, so for most people that will be A-levels, and your GCSEs, or your equivalent qualifications, whatever those might be. Your personal statement, we look for your school or college reference, that will be written by a teacher, any written work that you might have to submit, so that will be required by some of the Cambridge colleges, but not all of them. In the majority of cases, it will be 1 to 2 essays of 2,000 words each. And it's not something you have to write specially for the application. It's something that you will be doing during your A-levels. So nothing extra to write for that. Performance in the LNET admissions test, and also contextual data as well. So that is things like your school, the area you live in, things like what participation flags you might fit. So things like free school meals or care experience, all those sorts of factors we take into account. And of course, if you do get invited to interview, we look at that as well. Okay? Requirements, the minimum offer level for law, and mind you, that is the minimum offer level. It very much can be higher than that if you actually get an offer, is A*AA at A level, or 41 to 42 points in the International Baccalaureate with 776 in your higher levels. Okay? We do not have specific GCSE requirements, so you can take a breath. We do look at your GCSEs, but there's no specific threshold we have. It's not like A-levels. You're also very lucky that we don't have any specific subjects you have to take for law, but we do find that essay-based subjects are usually the most competitive ones and best prepare you for the degree, which is a very essay-based degree. So for most of our recent law students, they had taken at least one of English, either language or literature, history, or languages, ancient or modern, okay? But again, that's not a requirement. Other very common subjects include what you can see on the board. So lots of essay writing subjects like psychology, religious studies, economics, but also sciences as well. So lots of our students take sciences. You might be wondering, okay, what about the EPQ then? Do I need to do one? Does it make me more competitive? So an EPQ is a great way to show to us that you've got research skills. But it's not a requirement in any way. We will not penalize you if you don't have an EPQ. It's very nice if you have it. It will not make part of your offer, at least for Cambridge. I can't speak for all other universities, of course, but we will look at it. We will see it as evidence of your research skills. We understand not everybody has access to an APQ, not everybody's school has access to organizing an APQ, so there's no disadvantage to not taking an APQ. Don't worry at all. Okay. And then we've got the LNAT. What is the LNAT? The LNAT is the Law National Aptitude Test, and it tests your verbal reasoning, your comprehension, your inductive and deductive reasoning, your analytical capabilities, and it is used for law admissions. So we require the LNAT, along with another 8 UK universities, including Oxford. It's a 2-hour and 15-minute test. The first section is multiple choice. The second section is an essay writing section. And you write an essay on one of 3 possible questions, and you've got 40 minutes to do that. However, it's not an intelligence test. It's not a test of your knowledge of the law. It is very much a test of all of the qualities we mentioned above. We don't require you to know the law. We don't require you to be a lawyer. We don't care about your intelligence. It's not, your sort of typical school exam. It's quite different to that. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, the LNAT is not free. It does cost £75 for UK or EU test centres and £120 for non-UK or EU test centres. If you're in the UK or the EU, you might be eligible for bursary support offered from Pearson, who run the test. However, please allow for extra processing time when you do this. It can take a little bit of time for that to be fully approved, and you don't want to miss out on sitting the LNAT just because you did it too late. So do look into that as soon as possible. And same goes for exam access arrangements. Obviously, they're happy to arrange and to kind of accommodate anything, but give it a lot of time in advance because it can generally take a while to be approved with so many applicants. So you need to sit the LNAT in September to early October. For 2024, you needed to sit that by the Cambridge deadline, which was October 15th. And that's the usual deadline, but obviously do keep an eye out for when the next deadline for next year will come out. So for people that will be entering university in 2026 and applying in 2025, keep an eye out for that. But usually it is 15th of October. But you're actually able to book the test from 1st of August. It does get booked up very easily. So if you do want to use a test center that's near you and you don't want to travel to the other end of the country, you want to get it booked very, very quickly after registrations open. They do get very, very booked up. So keep that in mind as well. There's lots of information on the LNAT website about booking the test, about testing centers, example questions, all of that sort of nice thing. So do have a look if you know you'll be taking the LNAT. And then we have come onto the UCAS application. And we have come into kind of the last bit that goes into the application before you submit it, which is the personal statement. I will say we do have a separate webinar for the personal statement that is actually, I believe, next week. So I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail here. Please register for that if you are interested, and we'll break down the personal statement there, give you all the tips and tricks about how to write it. So do sign up to that. But as kind of a quick introduction, the personal statement, it does go into your application. The format of the personal statement has changed. So if you're applying for 2025, so in 2025, for entry to university is in 2026, it's no longer a free form text. It's actually a response to 3 questions. So a lot of the themes remain the same of what you need to mention, but the structure itself has changed. Exception to this is if you're applying to Cambridge in March as a mature student this year. So that will be the last round that we will be using the current personal statement system if you're applying in March 2025 as a mature student to one of the 3 mature colleges for entry in September of 2025. Anybody after that, you will be having the new system, and we'll break that down next week. But in the personal statement, we want you to be honest. As I said before, there's no typical Cambridge student. So we genuinely want to see, why are you interested in law? What kind of are you finding fascinating about this subject? What kind of subjects have you studied at school that are relevant? And what skills have they given you that are relevant to law? How have they prepared you, basically? And also supercurricular exploration. I'll talk about that separately in a minute. Now, extracurricular activities. So activities that are not relevant to the subject, we usually don't take those into account. So if you're doing law, that could be things like music, that could be things like sports, that could be things like volunteering. That's not relevant to law. And they're all great. And of course, we want you to do them for your own sake of mind. However, we don't take them into account unless you can prove that they are evidence of your time management and organizational skills. What you should be focusing on is supercurricular exploration. So that's any activity that has to do with law. That can be things like law books, that can be things like following the news, legal issues in the news, seminars or events, attending your local court. You can do that, or you can watch hearings on demand. For example, the Supreme Court does that. Legal podcasts, work experience, online courses like FutureLearn, our FutureLearn Exploring Law course. We have our own, so please do have a look at that. But there's other courses as well. There's also the Cambridge HT Plus website. Lots of different things you can do. You don't have to do anything too crazy. Those things can be free. Those things can be easily accessible. Which does bring me to the point of work experience. Do I need to do work experience? Not really, not for Cambridge, and not for a lot of universities. We don't require you to have done law work experience. If you have done it, great, fantastic. That can give you a good idea of what working in the legal sector looks like, but it's not a requirement for us. So don't worry if you can't access work experience at all, okay? And I've got a little note there to remind you that the UCAS application is usually the 15th of October. So all that has to be done by October 15th, or ideally earlier, or whatever the deadline is for that year. It's usually October 15th, but it might be, 2 days here or there. Now, when you are engaged with supercurriculars, don't just do them for the sake of doing them. Actually engage with them. So think about, what questions do they raise? What kind did you find interesting about them? What did you find surprising, maybe? How did you follow up on that interest? So, did you just read a book and say, okay, that's fine, that's it? Or did you go, okay, some of the ideas here are actually fascinating. How can I explore them in another way? Can I read another book? Can I watch a documentary? Can I go, watch a mock lecture at a university? Whatever it might be, actually follow up on those interests. And that's what you should do in your personal statement as well. Don't just name things. It's not a supermarket list. It's not a whoever has more wins situation. It's all about, how do you engage critically with what you're doing? A lot more important than doing more activities. So less is more in this case. Okay? And then after you submit your UCAS application, a week after that, you have to submit something called My Cambridge application. Okay? This is nothing to be too scared about. This is literally just a way for us to get consistent information about everybody that applies to Cambridge. You complete it online, and we collect information that's not in the rest of your UCAS application. Primarily the topics that you've covered in your A-level or other courses that you might be doing. And you also have the chance to write a Cambridge-specific personal statement. You do not have to. You will not in any way, shape or form be penalized if you don't. If you do want to tell us a little bit more about how, why the Cambridge course is for you, how you've explored your interest in law, brilliant. You can write something. You do not have to. Don't feel like you have to. Lots of people get freaked out about this, and I'm not quite sure why. Okay, after you submitted this, you might, as I said in the beginning, need to submit some written work, but information about that will be communicated by the college you've applied to. So we can move on to the next step, which is the very much dreaded interview. So I will say again, we do have a separate webinar about the interview. So please do go and register for that one if you want to hear things in detail. But in December, all the colleges hold interviews for the applicants that are shortlisted for those, okay? And this is just a way for us to get a holistic, a comprehensive understanding of who you are as a person, your motivations, and your potential to thrive here at Cambridge. So you might have one interview, 2 or 3. Usually, if you've got one, it might last 45 to 50 minutes. If you've got 3, it might be about 20 each. I would say most people, though, have 2 of 20 to 25 minutes each, okay? They are conducted by academics, so law academics, and they are very much academic and subject focused, but no prior knowledge of the law is required. Again, not a test of the law, not a test of how much you've studied the law or legislation or whatever. It's all about your critical thinking. It's about your motivations and your aptitude for law, your interest. What have you done to show that you've got interest? Do you have you done work experience? Have you done other supercurricular activities? What have you done? And what have you learned from those? How have you explored your interest in law through those activities? But also, we want to see that you're enthusiastic about complex and challenging ideas. So, an interview is very much like a discussion where the interviewers ask you some questions, and I will tell you, they will be difficult questions, questions you haven't heard about or thought about before. And they want to see how do you apply the knowledge that you already have, the skills that you already have to new problems and new situations. So they want to see that you don't panic, you don't freeze if you're faced with something that you don't know, that you try and apply what you already know to something that you just not encountered before. And then you kind of go back and forth with your interviewers where you say, okay, I think this and this is how I would approach it. And they respond and they try to help you and guide you towards the right direction by giving you advice and picking up on things that you're saying. And that's why it's a discussion. That is also why it's very important that you actually reason aloud for the interviews, that you actually say to them, this is what I think, this is what I don't understand, this is the knowledge I would use to apply to this problem. They can't really help you if you don't speak to them and if you don't explain your thoughts to them. So that is the biggest tip we always give for preparing for the interview. Just reason or speak aloud. Other things you can do to prepare is stay on top of current news, review your application. Of course, do remember what you've written in your personal statement the day before. Be yourself, be honest, don't try to play at someone that you're not, and do take a moment to think. Interviewers don't expect that you give an answer to them straight away. That's not the point. They want to see the way you think, and it's completely okay to say, can I just have 1 to 2 seconds to think about this? Can I just have a second to sort of gather my thoughts? Completely fine. Not a problem at all. Okay? Fantastic. So after you've got your interview, you're going to get your decision. And the good thing about Cambridge and Oxford is that we send all decisions to all applicants on the same day. That's not the same day for both Cambridge and Oxford. It's just the same day for all Cambridge applicants and then the same day for all Oxford applicants. Cambridge is usually in the middle to end of January. So this year was quite late, actually. I think it was the 30th or something, so quite late, but it kind of differs a little bit per year. Okay, so the colleges are responsible for those decisions. Any decision, it will come from the college that you were either interviewed by or applied to or both, and they will notify students of their outcome via email, usually. You might be made an offer, so that's one of the options, and it might be from the college that you applied to / were interviewed in, or it might be from a different college, and that is the system that we call the winter pool. That basically means the college that you applied to / were interviewed by did not have space for you. That could be for a number of reasons. And then they said, okay, I want all of the other colleges to look at your application to see if they might want this person. And then another college said, actually, I'd really like to give an offer to this person. And then they pick up on it and you end up getting an offer from another college. And they might be conditional, and usually they are. So that's usually finishing the academic qualifications you are currently taking with certain grades. Or it might also have an English language requirement attached to the offer. Or it might be unconditional if you have already started your qualifications. The minimum offer level for law, as we said, is A*AA or equivalent, or 41 to 42 points in the International Baccalaureate with 776 in your higher level subjects. Or you might be unsuccessful. Do not be deterred from applying to Cambridge just because there's a chance you might be successful. There's no way we can give you an offer if you've not actually applied to us. So just give it a shot. We would be one of your 5 university choices, so just give it a try. Try your best and don't be deterred by the fact that it might be unsuccessful. Even if it is, you've gained a great experience, you've gained an interview experience, and you've given it your all. So just go for it, basically, and don't be too scared if you are unsuccessful in your efforts. Some useful resources, I promise I've only got another 3 slides and then I'm done. Some useful resources to help you in that journey of looking into law, but also learning more about admissions. We completely understand that the application process is quite stressful, it can be quite complicated, and we want to support you as much as possible. Most information you need is on the Cambridge admissions page, different admissions pages, so that's on the undergraduate study website, also on our own website over at Faculty of Law, and the different college websites as well. We have a Think Cambridge Law blog that you might want to read, where we break admissions topics down in quite a lot of detail. But we've also got other things like insights from some of our academics on different aspects of law. We've got days in the life from different solicitors and barristers from our partner firms and chambers, all that sort of thing. So do give it a visit. Inside Uni is a website where current Cambridge students have shared their experiences of Cambridge and Oxford interviews. So you can go and read them from the people that actually sat them. As I said, we've got our Future Learn Exploring Law course. You can follow us on all social media. You can look at the alternative prospectus. So this is actually a prospectus for the university made by the students rather than the official prospectus. So it's a little bit more relaxed. If you want to see a day in the life of a current Cambridge student, we've got that on our YouTube channel. And you can also email myself at outreach@law.com.ac.uk. You can email me with any question you might have. Don't worry, there's no silly questions, there's no obvious questions. If I don't know, I'll just guide you to the right person, but I'm more than happy to chat to you via email. So do please send me emails and I'll be very happy to respond. Just a couple of more things to say about how we teach law at Cambridge and why it might be a little bit different than other universities. So just to finish off, to make you think about Cambridge specifically. So in terms of what do we teach, we've got a couple of foundational subjects. So these are subjects that you actually no longer need to take if you want to qualify as a solicitor. You do, however, still need to take them if you want to qualify as a barrister. But most students in law, as in 99.99999%, would take them anyway because they're a fantastic preparation to go into the legal sector. So that's criminal law, tort, constitutional, contract, land, equity, and European Union law. You also have lots of optional papers, things like international law, human rights, environmental law, criminal justice. You could do a dissertation or a seminar paper. So lots and lots of things to take in your second and your third year if you want to delve into a certain part of law a little bit more. So you can kind of branch out a little from the sort of basic things you're learning in first year. And last slide, how do we actually teach? We have your sort of standard lectures that any university would have. Those are delivered by the faculty for students of all the colleges, and they give you a good overview of the subject. They give you a good framework for doing your reading in the subject, and they can also kind of guide you for your individual study as well. You do those in the Faculty of Law. You have supervisions, and this is what is specific here for us at Cambridge. This is what's different, special, I hope. So that's small group teaching. It's actually organized by the colleges. So you would usually be with the people doing law from your college, but we do coordinate it here at the faculty. So everybody's kind of learning the same things and moving along in the same sort of rhythm and lines, basically. And that's just an opportunity for you to sit down. It's usually 3-on-1, so 3 students with 1 academic, and explore the topics that you're learning in more detail. So have discussions about different topics that you're learning. Ask the difficult questions, get help with things you don't understand or are struggling with. Usually for those supervisions, you'll have to write an essay on a specific problem question. And then through that question, you are able to discuss the topics that you're learning and to kind of internalize the new information. So they're all about kind of exploring your own interests rather than just kind of learning what is in lectures and then that's that. So they are really, really great. And I will say, it's a lot easier to kind of verbalize what you're struggling with when you're 3-on-1 than when you are 250 or 300 to 1, like it is in lectures. And of course, you can't get away. You still have to do individual study. You have to read cases, read legislation, read journals, textbooks, and of course, write your essays for those supervisions, do your own wider reading, and respond to those problem questions. So this is pretty much everything I had to say. Just a little bit of a reminder of my email there, just in case you've forgotten it already. And of course, if you are interested, we have a whole series of webinars that you might be interested in. So do go have a look at those as well, where we break down the other aspects of the application process. So things like the personal statement, things like the interview, all of those nice stuff. We do break them down in a lot more detail. So thank you very much. And I'm going to stop sharing and we will move on to the Q&A aspect, to the Q&A portion of today's session. And I will start with the pre-submitted questions we have. So do put in your questions in the Q&A. I can see we've got quite a lot already, actually. Let me just stop and share for a second. Really sorry, my screen seems to be a bit frozen. I don't know why it decided to do that right now. So we're going to leave that there for a second. But I will ask the student ambassadors the first question. I know you've been introduced to Megan and Owen already, but I am going to go to Chinglin, who's just joined us as well. So if you want to tell us what year you're in, and also what college you're in as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Chingwan. I'm in my 3rd year of doing law and I'm at Christ College.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And my screen decided to finally stop sharing, so that's great news for everybody there. Okay, so let's start off with some of the pre-submitted questions we have. There's quite a lot. So I'm going to start with actually something that is for the students, and it's a really common question we get. So how is the academic workload, and also how do you balance it with doing other things? So doing, your societies or whatever else you might be doing on the side. So can I throw that to Owen? I'm doing that quite randomly, so.
Yeah, I would say that the academic workload is, I would say it's more than A levels, but at the same time, you have less like contact hours, so you won't be in school, for instance. So that gives you quite a lot of individual time to work through your own pace. So that also gives you a lot of time to organize when you do your work around, when you do your societies. So there's just a lot more freedom in general, which I found quite fun.
Brilliant. Yeah. So actually, since that's really common, there's another 5 people who have asked these questions. Can I also ask Megan your opinion on this, so we hear from someone else as well?
So I think obviously the workload is quite intense, but it's quite easy to manage it and to make sure you fit in other extracurriculars. So for example, I always prioritize on the weekend, like I like to do my sports then. So I make sure that I have a day off on the weekend so that I can do them societies. And then I think just finding when you work best so you'll be most efficient. So I work best during the day, so I always try to get my work done like before dinner. Whereas I have some friends who work best in the evening, so they do their like most of their work after dinner. So I think it's just finding what works for you, and then can be the most efficient, have the most spare time.
Brilliant. That sounds good. Yeah. And I guess there's a learning curve, isn't there? You don't just learn it from, lots of nods. You don't just learn from your first day here at Cambridge. Okay, great. A very, very commonly pre-submitted question. Can I ask you, Chinglin, actually, why law at Cambridge? What is the difference for law at Cambridge and the other universities that offer it, UK and worldwide as well, I guess?
I think for me personally, I applied to a bunch of universities, including the UK and the US, but a big distinction is that in the US, you can't do law for undergrad. And so if you're really set on doing law from the start, then the UK and probably Europe in general is a more obvious option. And another aspect is the distinction between Cambridge and Oxford law. I think there is quite a big difference in the sense that, for example, at Oxford, if I'm not mistaken, you have to do jurisprudence as one of the mandatory subjects, and then jurisprudence at Cambridge is an optional module. So kind of like what you're more interested in. And also the way that exams are structured are different. So at Cambridge, you do exams once every year, whereas in Oxford, I think you do it once in the middle of your first year, and then you don't do exams again until the end of your 3rd year. So it's just sort of like what kind of learning style and exam style and content you're more interested in.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's very useful actually. But yeah, we always encourage, do your own kind of research, look around the different university websites, see what is for you. Because not the same thing works for everybody. So lots of questions that in the Q&A box about, do I apply to a specific college? Is there an advantage to applying to a specific college / doing an open application? No, you don't have an advantage or a disadvantage depending on the college you apply to. That is why we've got the window pool system. So I kind of mentioned that in the presentation, but that is basically when the college that you applied to / were interviewed by says, we just don't have space for you this year. But we will give your application to all of the other colleges to have a look at. And then another college might actually end up picking up your application. So that just kind of ensures that whatever college you apply, even if it does happen to be oversubscribed that year, there's not, it's not a disadvantage. You're not going to miss out just because you happen to apply to a college that was very much oversubscribed that year. Same with open application, doesn't matter. For us, it will be automatically what's the word I'm looking for? Allocated to a college, and they will assess it like any other applicant. Does not make a difference. Don't worry at all about that. If you want to do an application, do an open application. I did one as well. Okay, Let's see. There's lots of questions coming in. Lots of questions about supercurriculars. So, what is the best supercurriculars? Is there such a thing as too much supercurricular work? So, can I throw it to Megan? Maybe can you tell us a little bit about what kind of supercurriculars did you do to prepare for law, and what did you find most useful? And do you think you can do too many supercurriculars? Is that a thing?
So I think the most important thing about supercurriculars is to make sure you enjoy them, because the only way you're going to want to do them is to make sure you enjoy them. So personally for me, I focused on an area of law that I was really interested in. So I focused a lot on medical negligence, mental health law, and that kind of area of tort. And for me, that was really interesting. So I read some books on it, did some podcasts on it. I went to a few talks about it. And I think all of that holistically helped me have a better understanding. I don't think you ever do too much supercurricular. I think just do as much as you want, as much as you enjoy, and make sure you find your niche that you really enjoy, because that will really stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good point as well about doing something you enjoy. I think a lot of people kind of tend to do supercurriculars because they think they have to, either to tick them off a list or because they think they look fancier. So I know lots of people have mentioned, for example, debating in the Q&A box, and I'd say is that quite a common supercurricular? Yeah, let's say so. Yeah. And obviously, if you want to do it, that's fantastic. You just really don't have to. If that's not something you're enjoying, just do the things that you really like. Some questions about the LNAT coming in. So how do I prepare for the LNAT? Do I get my grades before I apply? I will say you don't actually get to see your LNAT score before you submit your application, or even before you receive an offer from us. So do think about that. A reminder that you do need to set it usually by the same day as the Cambridge deadline, which is the 15th of October. Again, usually, can change a bit depending on the year. But I'd like to pass it on to Owen to tell us a little bit about how he prepared for the LNAT. And, did you find it difficult? Did you find it easy? How did you find it, basically?
So how I prepared for the LNAT was basically there are free online tests on their website. So I did a practice LNAT just to kind of understand how the LNAT was structured. And then from that, I also um, I think it's quite useful to just look at articles online. So maybe go on BBC News, read some articles, maybe focused on law. But I would suggest also doing articles that are focused on maybe something that you don't know much about, because on the LNAT they can give you articles based on basically anything. So I would say, well, I read articles, and then from that, I would jot down some thoughts about the articles, maybe the contexts, and then maybe if you can get a friend to ask questions about the article as well, just so it kind of improves your comprehension. Um, I feel like it's quite difficult to know whether you're well prepared for the LNAT. I think going into the LNATs, it is a scary experience, and I think once you've finished it as well, you won't really know how well you've done. Um, but yeah, I would say just prepare for using articles and maybe some free online resources.
Sounds great. Yeah. And when did you start preparing for the LNAT, Owen? What was it?
I started just a month before. Um, I don't know whether there is much preparation you can do. The LNAT. Just try to improve your comprehension, essentially.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's good. A few questions have come in about how the law degree at Cambridge, does it offer opportunities for internships, work experience, getting in touch with different law firms, all that sort of thing? So can I pass it to Chinglan maybe to talk to us a little bit about what sort of things are offered to Cambridge law students?
Yep, so there are so many opportunities that law students can get involved in. In terms of internships, it's mostly run by the Cambridge University Law Society, which I'm the vice president of, and we basically liaise with a bunch of different law firms and chambers, and we host careers events that students can get involved in. They can attend workshops, networking sessions, and these can kind of help them in their applications for an internship. So although a law degree doesn't directly give you an internship, it gives you all these platforms that you can use to sort of strengthen your application for internships. And also there's lots of students around you who you can talk to about their experiences with internships, whether that's becoming a solicitor or barrister or a different career path. And in terms of other sort of opportunities, there are lots of moots that go on. And moots are basically legal debates. So they would give you a legal situation and ask you to kind of act for one side. And there's lots of international level moots that Cambridge law students get involved in, and more moots between students within the university. So there's really a huge variety of events that and opportunities that you can get involved in.
That sounds brilliant. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, we do have so many opportunities that you can do. And I think you kind of start from your first year as well. So there's contact from like quite early on. And it really is up to you how much you want to engage with those workshops, how much you want to engage with the Cambridge Law Society or whatever it might be. But I would say most students do have kind of, a degree of engagement, and they do try to at least meet some people and see if it's for them, because I suppose as well, if you are going into a law degree, you actually want to see what it's like. Is that right? Oh yeah, everybody's nodding. That's good. I didn't do law myself, so I'm not quite sure. But you do want to get an idea of what it is like to actually be a lawyer. Okay, quite a few questions are coming in about the personal statement. We do have a separate webinar about the personal statement next week, so please do go register for that. So I don't want to go in a massive amount of detail about this now, because we do have a separate webinar that will also be recorded. So if you can't make it next week, completely fine. Don't worry. But yeah, just kind of thought I would mention that. Going back to a question that I kind of said at the beginning. So I said law at Cambridge, how is it different than other universities? But we've also got a lot of questions about law at university. Why would I do that and not do a degree apprenticeship, for instance? Did any of you maybe consider a degree apprenticeship at all? Or was it not in anybody's sort of mind? No, I think no, because did it. Anybody, they can kind of, do any of you have an opinion maybe on why law at university might be better? If that's something you've thought about, or if you know anybody that did one. Okay, Owen, I think you're nodding. Do you want to go on? Thank you so much.
I think for me, the reason I chose to do a degree at university rather than a degree apprenticeship was because I didn't feel like I was ready to step into that environment. I think I I just really wanted to experience more of academia, and I'm interested in maybe touching on things they wouldn't do in a degree apprenticeship. So a lot more theoretical stuff. Um, so, for instance, in my personal statement, I wrote about jurisprudence, so less practical um, stuff, essentially.
Yeah, just very, very useful. And hopefully, yeah, to a lot of you wondering that, we did get quite a lot of questions about this. So that's very good. Okay, thank you so much. And okay, so let's talk a little bit about colleges now. And let's move on to a little bit more of a student life. And I do realize a lot of the questions are for the students. So thank you so much to the students, because I feel like we would not be able to run this without all of you. So, how did you pick your college? And did you pick your college? So I'm gonna throw it to Megan and Chinglan, maybe just randomly. So Megan, do you want to start?
So I actually didn't pick Girton. I picked Selwyn, and then I was winterpooled to Girton. Um, I would say for me personally, the main reason I picked Selwyn was because they did in-person interviews, and I really wanted an in-person interview. So that kind of narrowed it down greatly. And then I looked at all the colleges which did in-person interviews and just picked the one that most felt like home, I think. Um, but now that I'm at Girton, I realise how much I love it here, and I think it always does work out best for you. They're all obviously very similar. They all have the same main facilities, but there's just certain quirks to each different college, and I think that's really special. Like Girton, for example, has its own pool, which is really cool, and got lots of land. So there's lots of people who are really into sports here, whereas some other colleges might have other perks and things that they're more focused on. So I think college life in general, it's not the be all and end all because you mix a lot. I have lots of other friends at other colleges, but it's nice, like a nice home space where you feel comfortable.
Good. That you liked it, even though you didn't originally apply there as well. That's good news. A bit of hope. What about yourself, Jinglen?
I agree with everything that Megan said. I picked Christ's, and I ended up at Christ's. I picked Christ because it's very central. So I think geographic location does play a role when people pick their colleges. It's very central, it's close to all the shops, and it's kind of in the middle of everything. So I come from Beijing, which is like a big city, and I'm very used to like a bustling city life. So I wanted somewhere that kind of felt more like that, somewhere that's more central and also somewhere that's more convenient to get to places. And another reason I picked Christ is that it's kind of in the middle in terms of how many people there are. So it's not a really big college, it's not a really small college. It's got about 120 people per year. And I thought that was kind of like the right size to be able to meet a lot of people, but also to have enough people to meet a variety of people and make friends with. So these are the main considerations I had.
Great, great. That's really useful. Thank you so much. Okay, so a few people are asking if the student life atmosphere is intense. And I'm not quite sure what you mean by intense. Hopefully, it's a positive sort of intense. But I'd kind of link that to another question, which is the fact that we do have 8-week terms. So for those of you that might not know, the Cambridge terms are a little bit shorter than other universities. So it's 8 weeks, then more holiday, but 8 weeks that are quite intense. So student life, 8 weeks, is that quite intense? Is that quite difficult? I know in the beginning you sort of, talked about balancing your studies with other things, but does the fact that it's 8 weeks make it harder? And if you've got friends at other universities, do you feel like your experience is just a little bit harder or not? Maybe Owen and then Chinglin?
I definitely think that the like 8-week terms does put more pressure on you. You definitely need to be very specific with when you use your time and how you use your time. I definitely struggled with this when I first got to Cambridge, but now like in my second term, it's kind of it feels like it comes naturally now. I know when I have to do my work, and I know when I, like Megan said earlier, when I can do my work best. So I tend to work um, more towards nighttime than in the morning because I'm not a morning person. And I feel like that the lectures we have in the morning kind of get you into a routine and wake you up essentially so you can go off, do your individual study, maybe more alert than you would be if the lectures were, um, if you like did attend lectures, for example.
I think for me, 8 weeks definitely feels really short. It goes by very quickly, especially because your weeks usually tend to be quite packed with studies or extracurriculars. But also, I really like the long holidays because it gives you more of time to kind of spend with your family and also to do other things. So, for example, because of the long holidays, you might be able to do internships during the holidays, spend more time with your friends and family, go home if you're an international student, and also just to like attend other things. So, for example, last year, because of the long Easter break, I was able to join a choir trip that was 3 weeks long. And it was very, very fulfilling and kind of like gave me good time out and good rest from studying. So that by the time I come back for the next 8 weeks, I feel more refreshed and more ready to kind of start the intense 8 weeks again. And I think in terms of what intense means, I think it's definitely intense in the sense that there is a lot going on and every day is kind of packed with all kinds of things, but it's definitely intense in a good way because you get to be very close with your friends, like geographically very close because you all live together. And also you get to try so many new things and there's so many opportunities going on all the time.
Yeah. I was gonna say actually, you already said it there. I was an international student while I was at Cambridge, and I just thought it was just so much easier when you have like a whole month to go back home. Like some people only have 2 weeks. Sorry, I know that I'm only from Greece. I'm not as like from as far, but the tickets are so expensive, and I feel like if it was not 2 weeks, I just wouldn't pay the price. I don't know, Jingla might disagree with me, but I feel like it's just a bit more worth it if you're an international student. Brilliant. Okay, so just going back to admissions again, I'm kind of jumping back and forth depending on what the questions are. Two questions I will touch on actually is one of them is A levels. Lots of people are asking what A levels you need to take. You don't need to take any specific A levels. Most people will take essay based A levels because it is very much an essay based course. So most of our successful applicants will have taken one of English, language or literature, a language, modern or ancient, or history. But those are not a requirement, and we do find that kind of all of the essay-based subjects are really, really good preparation, and just generally reading, being on top of the news, reading books, reading articles, all that sort of thing. Yeah, so they're not a requirement specifically. And the other question is LNAT. Do I need a specific grade at the LNAT? Is there a threshold? No, there isn't. Great news. You do not need to there's not a threshold of pass or fail at the LNAT. Obviously, we expect people to do as well as they possibly can, and we hope that they will do as well as they possibly can. But we do take it into account with the rest of the application. So we look at everything together, not just the LNAT. It is important for you to do well, but it's not the end, the end of it all. You very much can do a bit worse off at the LNAT and still be okay. But yeah, there's not a specific threshold, basically. So actually, just as an example, Megan, do you want to say what A-levels did you do? And if you thought they were useful to prepare for law?
So I did quite different A levels to a lot of my peers here. So I did law and history, which I found both of them were really useful in terms of essay skills and reading. And then I also did maths and further maths, just because they were what I enjoyed. And I quite liked the problem solving aspect of it, which I think kind of links to law. But I think the most important thing is to pick things that you enjoy and that you want to study as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just the same with supercurriculars, isn't it? If you're not enjoying it, there's not really a point to it. Just do things that you like. Okay, we only have 2 minutes left, so I actually want to ask one question, but I'm going to ask all of you to sort of answer it to the extent that you can. And the question is, where do you see yourself in the future? So lots of people are thinking about, career pathways. What can I do with a law degree? Do I have to be a solicitor? Is there another pathway that I can follow? And how do I choose basically what I can follow? So if I start with Chinglin, Owen, and Megan last, do you want to go on?
Yep. So, I think for the immediate future, because I'm about to graduate in 6 months, I'm hoping to stay in Cambridge for a master's. I really want to do the LLM, and then afterwards, I would want to do a training contract. So I've done vacation schemes and I've received a training contract offer. So hopefully, I would be able to complete my training contract and then go on to be a solicitor. But I think in the longer term, maybe like far into the future, I would want to travel to different places, be able to work in different places, and hopefully be able to work from my home country. Yeah, so that's kind of my career plans.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
For me, I think that I want to be a solicitor. I think going to events with the Law Society and within my college, I've found that I, I'm finding being a solicitor is more suited for me. But I think it's important also to say that there's no expectation that you're going to know what you want to do um, early on into your degree. I have no idea, for instance, what part of law I want to focus on, and I think that just comes naturally considering I haven't touched on many areas of law. Um, so hopefully throughout the next 2 years, I'll maybe get a clearer understanding of what I want to do um, in terms of that.
Thanks so much. And Megan?
I would quite like to carry on studying further, and I'd quite like to be an academic and do lots of research into the law. So rather than the classic solicitor barrister route, I'd like to take the legal knowledge that I learn now and kind of further that and use that for research and writing.
Brilliant. I feel like our academics would be very happy if they had that. So you see there's sort of like different things you can do, but it's very important what Owen said actually. It's not a requirement to know in your first year. It's not a requirement to know in your second or your third year. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, or the law students, but people go into law later on in life as well, because you can be a solicitor, you can be a barrister when you're older, when you change your mind, you think, oh, I've done specific line of work for 20 years. I actually don't really like this anymore, and I kind of want to go back into law, and you can do that, and that's completely okay. Lots of people will go into being solicitors or barristers, but it's not a requirement. You can take some time off. You can do it straight away. You can kind of, as Chinglan's doing, do a little bit more further research first if you're interested in that, or go just into research if you're like Megan. So really, really doing law at university is it's a lot more about doing the law and studying the law than just preparing you to be a specific type of profession. And I think it's a nice thing to kind of close on. You don't just do a law degree because you want to become a lawyer, and you should be doing a law degree because you're interested in the law. You want to study the different aspects of the law, how they're applied. That will make you a better lawyer. That is also interesting in and of itself, as a study, as an academic study. So if you are interested in law and you just think, I don't want to be a solicitor, that's completely okay. Just go for law anyway, if that's something you really, really want to study. So a massive, massive thank you to Megan, Owen, and Chinglin, who joined us today from their very, very busy schedule to come and answer all of your questions. Very, very, very big thanks for all of their really useful answers. We did not get to all of the questions because there were about hundreds of them. So thank you so much to everybody attending for submitting your questions. As I said, you can email me and ask me questions, and I'll be very, very happy to answer them via email. So if we didn't get to your question, I am very, very sorry, but please do email me, and I'll be so, so very happy to speak to you. Come to our other webinars as well if you want to listen to any more of me, or want to listen to any more details of the different parts of the law application process. Otherwise, have a lovely evening ahead. Thank you very, very, very much, and maybe see you next week. Bye!